Welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be making 3 15-minute recipes all using SunButter. These recipes are recipes that I keep prepped like every single week, and you'll see why. We have a high protein, high fiber energy ball recipe. We have a quick and easy cookie bark recipe, and we have a delicious noodle bowl that literally is so good I could eat it every single day. So let's get into it. All right, so first up we have my nut-free energy bites. These stay in my fridge truly all the time because they are just the perfect snack. They're so easy to make. They're high fiber, high protein, full of nutrients, full of healthy fats, like so good. And like every recipe in this video, they take 15 minutes to make. So you literally just throw it all in a bowl, mix it, shape it, and you're done. All right, so this recipe is pretty foolproof. You just throw everything in a bowl, mix it and shape it, and you're good to go. So it has oats. You can use quick oats or rolled oats. I'm using rolled oats today because that's all I had, and either will work fine. All right, and then ground flaxseed, which is so good for you. Chia seeds, another great addition to this. They really have a lot of fiber. They have a lot of protein. They really help with your gut health and digestion and all that stuff. So I love throwing them in here. We have shredded coconut. Make sure it's unsweetened. I like the really finely shredded kind, but any kind will work. I don't always add this, but hemp seeds are a really great addition. So we're gonna put them in there. All right, and then goji berries. You can use goji berries, raisins, any dried fruit will work. All right, and then mini chocolate chips for just a little extra indulgence. All right, so then you don't have to mix it up, but I like to mix it up before adding the wet ingredients just so there's no like clumps of a single ingredient. All right, and then we're gonna use some maple syrup. You can use honey or agave or any liquid sweetener. All right, and then we're gonna use a SunButter. I'm using the no sugar added one, but you could use any of their flavors. You could use their chocolate for a little extra richness. You can use the organic, you can use the original, whatever your heart desires. All right, so we're gonna use 1 cup of this. All right, and then a little bit of vanilla. All right, and then we just mix all this up. All right, so this is one of those recipes that eventually it's just so much easier to use your hands, and it gets very sticky. So I've started adding gloves to my kitchen, and I can't tell you how much I love them because it's just, I hate when your hands are all sticky and gross. So if you have gloves, use them. If you don't. You can stir it, but like I said, it just becomes so much easier to do it this way. So then we just roll them. You can make them as big or as small as you want. There you go. All right, next we have my cookie dough bark, which the name alone is enough to convince me to make this. I love all things cookie dough, so this recipe is definitely a go-to dessert for me. Nice little sweet treat. It's not too hard to make, and you probably already have all these ingredients in your pantry anyways, so let's get into this. All right, so first up we have oat flour. This is literally just oats blended. You can buy pre-made oat flour, but why would you? You literally just blend up oats. It's super cheap, and we're gonna use quite a bit of this because this is the base, but no cooking. You don't need to heat treat it or anything like that like you would regular flour. You can also use almond flour in its place, but I like the taste of oat better. All right, and then I'm just gonna mix in some chocolate chips. I like the mini ones, but you can use any size you want. And I'm just gonna mix that in, just like the last recipe. You don't really need to mix it before, but it just makes sure you don't get any like clumps of anything. All right, and then again, we're gonna sweeten this with maple syrup, but any liquid sweetener will work. I honestly haven't tested it, but liquid sweetener is pretty much 1-for-1 substitute all the time. All right, and then a little vanilla, and then a pinch of salt. Yes, I know this is very excessive, but my husband loves salt, so I'm using the no sugar added, but you can use any SunButter you want. I bet a chocolate SunButter in this would be really good. I'm honestly not like the biggest chocolate person, but if you are, I bet that would hit the spot. All right, and then we're just gonna mix this. All right, so after you mix it for a while, you will get a nice dough ball. You'll probably have to get your hands dirty again, But the easiest way to do the next step, I think, is using a piece of parchment paper and finding where you'll be able to like cut it in half and then cover it and roll it. I think this is the easiest way. Sorry, I'm like, where's my big rolling? I don't know, it's gone missing, so I'm just gonna use this small one. But you just wanna roll it until it's like 1/4 of an inch thick or so. You can honestly make it as thick or as thin as you want to. Another thing is you could just stop right here and get little cookie dough bites. You could put them in the freezer, you could put them in ice cream. Like, it's so simple. And they really do taste like cookie dough. All right, so once you roll it, it'll look like this. You could shape this to make it look really nice, but you're gonna be breaking it up anyways, so I don't think that matters. And next, we're just gonna take some melted chocolate and drizzle it and smooth it out on top. You wanna make sure it's completely coated because that's what will hold it together. All right, and then you can make some pretty designs with it because we'll put it in the freezer for a second and it will hold the shape. Also, now's a good time if you like a little extra saltiness to sprinkle some salty sea salt, some flaky sea salt on top. So just elevates it, and who doesn't love a little salt? All right, so we're just gonna put this in the fridge or the freezer. The freezer is the easier way because it takes less time, for about 10 minutes. All right, so mine kind of froze in a weird shape because I shoved it in my freezer, but it doesn't really matter because it breaks apart. And you can break this into as small or as large of pieces as you would like. I honestly kind of like small pieces because you can just grab a little bit, and then when you eat a bunch of little small bites, it doesn't feel like you're eating as much, but so good. All right, next up we have the spicy sesame noodles. This is a recipe that I always come back to because it's just so good, so simple, packed with a bunch of really good ingredients. You can add vegetables to it if you want, or you can just eat a big old bowl of noodles, no judgment here. So let's get into this one. All right, so you just start by grating garlic and ginger. You can also, ooh, I almost just sliced my hand off. You can also just use like pre-minced garlic and pre-minced ginger. That's probably the way to go because this always kind of scares me a little bit. Before I forget, definitely start boiling your pot of water for the noodles. That's the only part of this that has to be cooked, and you can do that while you do everything else. So I would recommend using a larger bowl because we're just gonna mix the sauce in the bowl and then add the noodles to it. This does serve 4, so you'll want like a serving size bowl. All right, I'm using the organic SunButter for this one. I kind of like using this one for savory recipes because it's not salted, and I find that you add a lot of salt to savory recipes anyways. So I kind of just prefer this one. Again, it doesn't matter. You can use any SunButter that you like. I wouldn't recommend, obviously, I wouldn't recommend like chocolate, and I wouldn't recommend the sweetened ones, but between the two of these, they'll work interchangeably. All right, so we're just gonna add a cup of that, which sounds like a lot, but trust me, they're so creamy and it's so good for you. So go heavy on it if you want. All right, and then we're just gonna put the ginger and garlic in there. All right, and then we're gonna use soy sauce. It calls for liquid aminos, but they're the same thing. And this is what I have on hand today. I'm gonna eyeball it. I wouldn't recommend eyeballing it. I would recommend following the recipe, but again, I've made this so many times that I feel comfortable eyeballing it. And then toasted sesame oil, so good. A little bit of maple syrup to kind of counteract some of the spiciness because we're about to bring the heat. Then I would say add the chili crunch oil to your taste. Again, I really like spicy stuff, so I kind of go heavy on this and like 1 or 2 tablespoons, but I would start with like a teaspoon because it does get kind of spicy. Like I said, I love this, so I kind of go heavy. Will be a second where it kind of looks like you're like, what is going on? Keep mixing and you'll get past that and it'll become super creamy. I honestly don't know what that is. I don't know if it's the fats and the oils from the fats and the water, but just keep mixing. All right, so as you can see, it has become super creamy. So now we're gonna add the noodles. All right, I'm just going to put a little bit in at a time and kind of mix them up. All right, so we just mix this until it's all combined. There's a lot of sauce, so it just takes a little bit of time to mix it, but before long you'll get super creamy noodles. It also helps, you might need to add a little bit of water while you're mixing it. I have had this happen when I let the noodles kind of strain for a little too long and they start to dry up a little bit. Just add a little bit more water. It's not gonna change the taste or the texture. It's just gonna help you mix it all together. All right, and then you can top this with some green onions. I'm just gonna cut up a couple. Very thinly sliced though, for sure. And you can just sprinkle those on top. And you can also add a little more chili crunch oil if you want. And that's how you get these 15-minute sesame noodles.